Hmm. This didn't happen last time. I said this didn't happen last time. I'm not sure if this is going to happen.
Since you're already there.
Okay, so we'll just assume this is working. Okay, I think we have.
This is the first work group meeting or the other committees?
This is the first work group meeting. The next work group meets on the 5th, and that's Terry West, who's the coordinator.
Okay, so welcome. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you guys making it here, especially with a short notice. This is the first meeting for the Municipal Services Work Group. This is for the Upper Feather River Integrated Regional Water Management Plan update process that was started a few months ago. I think we'll go around first and do introductions. My name is Uma Hinman. I'm the Municipal Services Work Group Coordinator, so I'll be helping put the meetings on and put them together. I'm also the project coordinator for the overall plan update. And so I have contact information in your handouts and on the slides so that you guys can all get in touch with me. I'll be a point of contact for the overall process.
My name is Randy Wilson. For those who haven't met me, I'm the Plumas County Planning Director and co-manager of Plumas County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, basically on the soft side of the planning side. I manage this project and the grant that supports it. It's a Prop 84 grant. And I also manage a Prop 50 grant that was existing a number of years ago.
I'm Roy Carter, Greenhorn Creek Community Services District. Good morning.
Larry Sullivan, manager, Quincy CSD.
Bill Lewis, resident of Calpine.
Tom Egerhofer, I'm the interim director of Plumas County Community Development, which in the past has assisted the special districts with infrastructure things.
Rick Matlin, Sierra Public Utility District. I'm Sharice, I'm just here to make sure you guys get this right. I'm visitor.
Bob Raymond, Clio PUD.
Ivan Gossage, Gold Mountain, CSD.
Frank Motzkus with Plumas Eureka CSD.
Robert Meacher with the City of Portola.
Cody Reed, I'm with UC Cooperative Extension, and I specifically work with the Master Garden Program, and so I come at this from a different angle than you the rest of you, it seems like, more on the public education outreach side of things, water use efficiency.
Nice to see you.
Great, well thank you. So we have kind of a full agenda today, so I'm going to go through what we're going to be talking about. We're going to do an overview of the management plan process, get you guys information about where this started and where we're headed with it. We're going to go over the Memorandum of Understanding and talk about the stakeholder involvement plan, and then we'll go into the work group roles. Part of this, the work group effort will be the selection of a chair and an alternate chair, and we'll go over what their roles will be. Then we'll talk about resource management strategies, which are a task that have been assigned to the work groups. And then we'll look at project development, which is the part that most people are probably interested in. And then we'll look at next steps and then talk about scheduling the next meeting dates. Randy's gonna help me talk about the IRWM and what it is, just to briefly go through it. Do you wanna do this part or do you want me to?
Go ahead and I can fill in.
So the first Upper Feather River Integrated Regional Water Management Plan was adopted in 2005, and that was under a Proposition 50 grant. In 2009, under Prop 84, which had revised guidelines for the water management plans, the county, or Plymouth Flood Control District, submitted a regional acceptance process application that formally recognized the Upper Feather River Basin as one of the regions. And in 2012, application was made to update the 2005 plan. And then in 2014, that the Flood Control District entered into an agreement with DWR. I think I need more coffee. So there's been 2 management group meetings that kicked off the plan update process. The first one was September 24th, and then last week we had the second meeting. And now we are just starting the work group meetings, and there are 4 work groups, and this is the first one that has met. So today we're kind of working out the bugs.
So to give you an idea, the map on the wall behind Tom, there's a blue line. That's the outline of the Upper Feather River watershed. So it crosses many county borders, including Sierra County, Plymouth County, some of it's in Butte County, a little bit of it's in Lassen County, maybe some's in Tehama County and Yuba County. However, the main emphasis is really with Sierra and Plymouth County. The Butte County portion, and you'll notice it goes, the Upper Feather River goes all the way down to the dam at Lake Oroville. We will eventually be doing an MOU with the group that does in the Oroville area, what do they call it, the North Sac or something like that, kind of putting that responsibility more on them. So that's the Upper Feather River watershed. And I'll say what I said to the work group. And the work regional manage, the work group is the decision-making group for this effort.
The management group.
The management group. I'm going to call them the steering committee. That's who they are. All this process is formed around the grant application and requirements for IRWM that comes from DWR. So that group is ultimately the decision-making. This group will make recommendations, develop projects. We'll be looking at chapters and all the elements of the plan at some point in this 2-year process. If we can move it quicker, we will. The start's kind of the beginning, and then we'll see how it goes from there. Ultimately, the steering committee will be prioritizing projects. And that's for grant monies. But we've looked at it more dynamically than just the Prop 84 money that we may qualify, we don't know yet. There's a one remaining round of Prop 84 grants. We know the state water bond has money that we'll be looking at, and as Leah Wills pointed out, there's what's called the Monterey Agreement. It's a settlement agreement. Eventually, about $4 more million will come to the Flood Control District, and some of that money might be used for projects. It was in the first round $4 million. So just kind of give you that idea. One of the other things we'll be looking at is developing projects, i.e. solving problems in a way, your infrastructure needs. This work group is the municipal group. We know that there's aging infrastructure in the region, and getting those issues identified is important in developing projects. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
At this juncture, it says that the district county entered into an agreement with DWR. Do they recognize that boundary as the Upper Feather River in that agreement?
Yes, it's still that boundary.
So they've said this is the Upper Feather River.
Right, that was part of the original regional acceptance that Brian Morris did, who used
Right.
to be the manager of the flood control district. And I've had DWR talk to me after our first steering group meeting and saying, well, maybe we should change the boundary. And I'm going, well, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should do something else. But I haven't really brought the subject up, but it is a good one. Do we want to divorce ourselves from part of this, or do we want to stay connected? Because there's a certain amount of power that comes from having it.
I agree. They've never really recognized the connectivity before between the three upper reservoirs and Orville, even though they're all part of the same project. So I find that intriguing that
It's
somebody in DWR at least said
Right.
this is okay.
And in reality, this is the water source for the state water, California Water Project. Water goes on paper at least all the way to San Diego. We're a source region. In my opinion, we should get some benefit from that. I'm not sure we've done that over the years. This is an opportunity, I think, for the region to look at that, especially in identifying projects and needs and solving problems related to water, and that also includes wastewater.
The other question I had was the comment you made that this is a 2-year process and that we might qualify
We
for
don't,
Prop 84, and it's because it is a 2-year process that I understand from the last meeting that we may not qualify because we're making it a 2-year process and we got started late. So from that, what's at stake that we might lose by being behind on our schedule in Prop 84, Phase 3 funding?
I don't know how much money is left in the last round. When we were putting the contract together with DWR for the grant, Robert, there were discussions with Debbie Spangler, who's our grant representative at DWR out of the Red Bluff office, that we might reach a point where they might accept applications, but they accelerated the second round due to the drought. So that kind of changed that dynamic, even as we were putting the final touches on the grant agreement with DWR to do this project. So it's
substantial millions of dollars that
it's clearly in the bond too.
right, that if we could encourage the steering committee to accelerate this process, we as the municipals and others, the other work groups, could greatly benefit by having the plan developed. Or ask them, DWR, what their process is since they've accelerated it to level the playing field for those folks who were counting on a longer timeline. Because clearly the ones like Cabby that have gotten ahead of the curve will be the beneficiaries of the accelerated timeline.
Yeah.
And will be suffering as a result.
Right, and then we are the last, I think, to do it.
All right.
One of the, when we were developing the timeline for this, that's why we put the project development process in the first year.
Right.
And then put the chapter development process in the second year, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that was to hopefully get the projects to a point that they would be ready if we could further the plan along. So.
And the key to that will be the objectives, developing the plan early too. I think we're going to take a shot at those early too. So we do have an existing plan that's part of the packet that I have here that I took to the board that has the grant agreement, and it also has the regional acceptance process, the old MOU that was done years ago. So we have sort of a start on getting the plan. I will agree with you if we can do that, and we certainly will try. This is the beginning, and of course the beginning you kind of, okay, where are we going with this? What is it? But once we get going, maybe we can do that. That'll be in part depending on, also about Luna's ability to do that and accelerate it from her side. There's a lot of subcontractors involved, but it's still possible. So we've tried to, stage it anyway in hopes of being able to qualify for that last round. In the end, we'll have developed a bunch of projects. Some of them will be prioritized, but everybody will have developed projects. And when Uma goes into the project development handout, you'll see that there's some real advantages of being able to frame projects within that scope of what's in that handout. That'll allow, like, you as the municipal group to independently already have sort of a good idea of how to put a grant application in, whether it's from the sources we're talking about or other sources that may exist. So there's some real advantages of figuring out the right paperwork, and that's what Tom's shop does, but he hasn't got the capacity nor the money flow to do for everybody, but this will help everybody in that realm. So I'm glad that at least some of the special districts are represented, because this will help you understand what you need to do to acquire funding on a more succinct and probably more effective level.
And I suppose I can talk to you and Uma offline about the fact that up until now and including today, this focus has primarily been with the county and the special districts, with the city as a signatory to the MOU only. Is that right? So I'm sort of here to find out if I should even be here. In a sense, if this process is designed for the city to actually be involved in.
Oh, it is, Robert. I don't think there's any, and the fact is, I am very glad you're here, because the city, and I'm loyal to and can do this too, is play be a part of this, because even though there's political boundaries and jurisdictional, leaders in different boundaries, like the special districts, we're all sort of in the same watershed. And one of the things I've seen since I've been here about 6 years, often mostly as the planning director, is that people really don't know the issues of their neighbors. And often we find ourselves competing with our neighbors for the same pot of money, and it's not probably the most effective way to work together. So we will share a lot of knowledge together. We will share problems that we have and issues that we have, and that should help and benefit the whole upper watershed. And the other group, this is the municipal group. Uma, the other groups are?
Jumping way ahead, Randy.
Oh, okay. I'm going to leave it at
We'll
that.
go over that, I
All right.
promise.
So I'm going to turn it back. I
So,
promised Tom I wouldn't talk that much. He's looking at me with his arms crossed.
I gotta get the hook.
Well, he's talking because I'm asking questions.
It's okay.
I apologize to you all for trying to just get some clarity before we jump into this.
so just to take a step back and to really give you guys an idea of the purpose of the overall plan update, Randy really
went into a lot of this, but this is a collaborative process to develop strategies and project priorities that benefit the basin. So we're going to be identifying water management challenges and opportunities in the region, and then, as Randy noted, we're going to be prioritizing a list of projects within the basin, and those will be included in the plan update, which establish those projects as eligible for future state funding opportunities. And when we talk about the projects a little bit, there is opportunity for other funding sources also through this process. So this is the mission statement that the management group adopted at the last meeting, and it is on the back board here, but I thought it would be important to read it just so you can see where their goals are. To effectively perpetuate local control and regional collaboration to provide stability and consistency in the planning, management, and coordination of resources within the Upper Feather River watershed. To implement an integrated strategy that guides the Upper Feather River region toward protecting, managing, and developing reliable and sustainable water resources. So that's the statement that is going to be guiding their decision-making processes. So this is just the general plan update process. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but the tasks that we have to go through for this plan update, which is set forth in the Prop 84 guidelines. We're going through stakeholder outreach, and we're reaching out to agencies, organizations, tribes, public, cities,
counties. And then we're going to go through a data collection, management, and mapping strategy. And a lot of that's going to occur through the website. And we're also asking all of you folks for help in the data collection process. We'll be working with you all and with the public to identify regional water issues and objectives for the region. And we'll be developing projects and prioritizing them. And then we'll be actually developing the chapters of the plan itself, and that will happen in year 2. We'll be working on those, I think, all along the way, but the review of those chapters will happen in year 2. And then we'll do release the draft plan for final review and do some public hearings on those, and then it'll be submitted to DWR for acceptance. So in 2009, an MOU was signed, a memorandum of understanding was signed by 30 entities, agencies, and organizations within the basin. And I'm going to let Randy talk about that, about the need to update it.
So, in your packet, there's a copy of the proposed new one.
Yeah.
And it's really based on the one that was done previously, which then Flood Control District Manager Brian Morris put together. I went through it and modified it. One of the issues was the how do we put together the regional water management work groups, or the decision-making group, and i.e. the steering committee, I'll call them that. And what we did is we reorganized it, and that group is consisted of 11 members. They are a member from the Plumas County Board of Supervisors, the Plumas County, a member from the Plumas County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. There's a member from the Sierra County Board of Supervisors. There's a member appointed from the Feather River RCD, one from the Sierra Valley RCD, one from the Sierra Valley Groundwater Management District. There's a Native American representative. There's a representative from at large for the Almanor District. Who else am I missing? The Forest,
Community services.
Community Services District. Community Development, which happens to be Tom at this point. With regards to the 3 national forests that are playing in this, there's the Tahoe, the Plumas, and the Lassen. They can actually, under their federal rules, be on the decision-making body, but they can be advisory to the decision-making body. So there's 3 members from the forest that will be participating in that group. So that group has decided that they're going to make decisions based on majority rules. What the previous MOU was this idea of consensus, which can be very difficult at times to come to a consensus. In my language, it's called informed consent. However, for your group and the other groups, it remains consensus. So it's the idea is to not have majority rules, is to see if you can come to consensus on your recommendations to the steering. And all the groups would do that. So included in your packet is a copy of the revised MOU, and that needs to be you're all from various CSDs and entities, districts, special districts, the city. We're going to be asking people to sign on to the new MOU. So the request is sort of a homework assignment. I'm not going to ask you to cough up your opinions on it at this time, is to review what's in the packet. And I think the steering committee agreed to the structure of the MOU last meeting.
Right, so the direction from the management group from the last meeting was that they approved the draft as it is, the draft language, and then we're to distribute it through the work groups to the various districts and agencies for consideration and signature. So the homework assignment is to take it to your boards and for consideration, and then ask them for signature or for comments on it if they have any concerns, so that to let us know so that we can take that back to the management group.
Is there a signatory page in this, or can you provide a Word file or something?
What I can do is I can send out a Word file of the document by email. There is a copy of the draft, a PDF copy of the draft also on the website, if you'd like to just download that one, and I'll go through the website and show you where it is in a little bit. So are there any questions on the MOU other than that?
Is there a time frame at which the board would like to see this done?
They did not specify a time frame,
They next meet in January,
the end of January.
so we got a couple of months. It would be nice if groups could get on board for that.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because like we have, usually we meet once a month, so December and January before the next steering committee or whatever meeting. So if they wanted it done that quickly, we need to get this word out that this needs to be done.
Didn't they adopt the draft?
Yes.
Yeah.
With one caveat, and that is the Native Americans are still reviewing it, and Trina brought that up in the adoption, and so it may change if there's some issues there, but pretty much it was adopted. And again, it's not new rocket science in many ways. It does reflect the new working group decision-making structure, but it's really 90% of what was there before.
So if any questions come up, you can contact either me or Randy, and we're happy to go to answer your questions or to point you in the right direction.
So is it the goal to have the signatories on to the MOU by the next steering committee?
I think that's what we would like to shoot for. No deadline has been set by the management group at this time. But
Not that meeting, the following meeting, which would be in March. They meet every 2 months, which may get accelerated
I
as we
wish
get
it
rolling
would.
here.
I'm encouraging you.
I know. And I would like to see it get done too. Rob.
Yeah, I mean, for us with shovel-ready projects, it'd be a shame to lose out on that round 3.
Well, I will admit
Yes.
part of the issue getting going was me
Right,
finishing the update of the Plymouth County General Plan
I understand.
and dealing with other issues like the reworking some of the existing 50 grant projects. We moved it as quickly as we could, but
I hope I don't sound like I'm criticizing, I'm just encouraging.
and I want to hear that because I think everybody would like to be able to qualify for that money as soon as possible, and if we can do that, we certainly will try.
Speaking only for myself, I've never sensed any reluctance at the board to not move as quickly as possible. I mean, I don't think there's any, unless I missed something.
No.
I have certainly sensed that what the meetings.
The only thing you missed was was Leah's comment that we're out of the running because of this process.
No, I heard her say that, and I
Okay.
saw your reaction. Nobody missed that one.
Okay,
I certainly have not sensed any, and I'm only supposed to speak for myself, so I'm just speaking for myself. Personally, I haven't sensed any resistance,
Right.
any kind of accelerated.
well, and I don't think there's resistance, but I think there's just sort of this is what it is, and we're probably not gonna get there because the process is gonna take the time it's gonna take.
Yeah, but
And it's good that Randy says, well, maybe if everybody keeps chugging along, we might.
everybody, that's what I saw.
We're just at the beginnings. We've had 2 steering committee meetings and this meeting, and there's another one.
The other ones, work group meetings are coming. Having managed the update process for the Plymouth County General Plan,
It did drag on, but that's a different kind of beast than we're dealing with here. That's the general plan.
Well, and we have a firm deadline for when this has to be done.
We have a firm deadline, and that's part of the contract with DWR. So, again, when we had ongoing discussions when we were putting together the contract for the grant with DWR, and then the drought happened and they started accelerating. Leah said we won't qualify. I'm not so sure of that. Because part of those discussions is if we could identify projects, have projects prioritized, and if we could get enough in the plan developed that connected it all strong enough that we still might be able to, but that's always been a serious question, especially when you start dealing with government bureaucratic institutions. Sometimes they're not bending. Like if you're 3 minutes late in submitting a grant application, you're dead in the water, and some deadlines, they don't bend on that. So we have a new person.
Jesse Lawson, Indian Valley Community Services District.
Hi, Jesse.
I came just in time for the late comment.
I'm glad to see you here because
I'm
I
glad to
haven't
be here.
really met you, but we're working together on some of the Prop 50s.
I drove to the wrong spot thinking I knew where this was at. Sorry, I'm late.
Question, please. What's the sign off on the MOU look like? That question was asked, and I just the answer.
So what I'll do is I'll send out a Word version with a signature sheet, so that you can use that for signature, and then if you could get it back to me, that'd be great.
So basically a resolution by the board to accept this and a signature about it.
It's not a resolution, it's a memorandum of understanding.
No, but
Whatever you
provide
provide
board.
Whatever process you.
Yeah, I mean, good question. I mean, I was gonna just follow your format, have them approve an MOU, not a resolution. Is that acceptable?
Whatever
Yeah.
your,
Cause I know our board would feel more comfortable with it with an MOU, just,
right.
you know.
I mean, it's a pretty simple sign off. I'll just pass around the page from the last one. You can see it's just, only this time it'll probably be all individual pages, but it's pretty simple. However, your governing board, whatever that may be, is comfortable in approving the MOU would be appropriate. Whether it be a motion or a resolution, whatever's necessary for the governing
Approve
board.
MOU. Sign it, let's go.
One thing,
Messing around.
one thing with the management group chair pointed out was the relationship of the parties, which is the last item on the MOU. And it says, in entering into this MOU, it's the intention of the parties that this MOU shall not be construed as an enforceable contract or agreement, but rather a statement of principles.
Right.
So she felt that was really important to point out, and yeah, so just keep that in mind. So again, I'll send out a Word document with a signature page by email to all of you, and we can get it out that way. I'll send it out to the whole email list, and hopefully that will be good. But if you come across other districts or people who are interested, let me know and I can reach out to them with it as well.
Uma, I noticed, and I'm getting emails from you, so you must have it right in your system, but it's not right on this contact sheet.
Okay.
My email is not at plumscdc.org, it's at Plymouth.
Gotcha.
But you must be right in your master list.
I do have it right there. It's a typo, yes.
Okay.
I'll get that.
We had to rebuild that contact list.
That's how
Uma's done a really good job and done a lot of homework. She's actually internally in the group, there's, I get notices of all the meetings that everybody's having. They come up on my computer. There's a couple of meetings of groups today. There's a lot of meetings that happen within the upper watershed from all the different groups that happen. So I get notice of meetings of all your groups pop up on my computer. Uma said I can turn them, she can turn them off for me, but I'm going, you know, it's kind of nice to know what's going on out there. that's one of the issues we're trying to sort of transcend. We're all in our own kind of space, and this is an effort to get us together in a different way.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk just really briefly about the stakeholder involvement plan. It is included in your packet of information here. I think it's the last thing in your packet. It's the plan for approach and methods for outreach to all of the stakeholders, the local agencies and public. This was adopted or approved at the last management group meeting, and it's our guideline for how we're going to do our outreach to everyone. It also includes the meeting guidelines, which are an attachment to your agenda, so you can read that. It's also posted on the back wall there. The meeting guidelines are, it's to help the group keep moving along and to establish a respectful rapport for folks. It's to help the group accomplish the meeting objectives, to follow common discussion guidelines, and to be comfortable and to make it comfortable for others in the meeting. I'm not going to read every one of them, but that is an attachment in your packet. So other content in the stakeholder involvement plan is the decision-making protocol, which Randy went into a little bit. The management group is by majority, and at the work group level, we're striving for consensus on our decisions and recommendations. It also includes a communication plan, and it includes an initial list of contacts, including the management group contacts on the last page. And then it has the draft schedule of meetings and meeting milestones. Those are for the management group meetings, not the work group level. And it also has website and contact information for the management group members, for us, the consultant team who's putting this together, and the coordinators also, the various work groups. So again, that's in your packet. It's also on the website, which we'll go over so that you guys can refer to it if you wish. So now I'm going to go into the work group roles. This is what we'll be doing at this in this meeting, as well as the other work group meetings. So there are 4 work groups that have been established. There's an agricultural land stewardship work group. The work group coordinator for that is Holly Foster. There's an uplands and forest management work group, and the coordinator for that is Leah Wills. And then a floodplain meadows and water bodies management, which is coordinated by Terry Rust, and then our group. Anyone is welcome to participate in any of the work groups. You can participate in multiple work groups if you want to. You all were contacted as being the most likely folks for interest in the municipal services work group. So anyone can participate in the work group level. Also, there's the MOU members, any stakeholders, and anyone from the public. Just a kind of visual of this work group structure. The body is made up of the work group members, and then there will be work group liaisons will be myself, the work group coordinator, and then you guys will be selecting a work group chair also to, and I'll go into the roles in a minute. And then the decision-making body is the Regional Water Management Group, is what that acronym stands for. So there's a lot of acronyms, and if you guys have questions, please let me know. I tried to spell out most of them, but I may have missed some. So each work group will meet 4 times per year. There's a total of 32 over, that includes all of the 4 work groups. One of those 4 work group meetings per year will be an integration workshop where all the work groups will get together and meet and discuss anything that comes up. The first one will be a project integration workshop, which will encourage multi-benefit projects primarily. And then there's also a couple of workshops. There'll be one of the requirements of the plan update is to include a climate change section. So there will be a workshop on the climate change technical study that's developed, and then the management group meetings, which, as Randy said, occur every other month. So the next one will be January 28th. The municipal services work group is these are the things that we expect to address in this group: urban water use efficiency, groundwater and surface water pollution prevention, water system reoperation, drinking water treatment and distribution, groundwater and aquifer remediation, recycled municipal water, urban runoff management, and matching water quality to water use. So those are some of the topics we'll be addressing. So the role of the work groups is to provide recommendations to the management group, mostly on the resource management strategies that are contained in the California Water Plan and which we're required to address through this plan update process. The management group may also assign other topics, and we're going to go through those management strategies today and select the ones this group feels that they would like to work on. Another role, a task for the work groups is to provide input on the project selection and prioritization criteria. So you guys will all be bringing projects forward and then also working on the selection and prioritization criteria that the management group will use to prioritize the projects.
Uma, isn't that guided sort of by the plan itself and the 84 process?
It is somewhat, but all regions can choose to do it a little bit differently. There are certain criteria that has to be met, but the management group can also add criteria on.
Add criteria.
Yeah. Another role for the work groups is going to be to comment on the draft plan chapters that will make up the plan itself. And as the consultant team develops the chapters, which will be based on content and information in the 2005 plan and also what's collected and then generated at the work group level, we'll draft the plan chapters and we'll bring them to you for review, and then you all can make recommendations to the management group on those chapters. You can also invite presentations by technical experts or scientists. More information on a certain topic that's very important to you guys, and let us know, let me know, and I can help you set up a presentation at the next work group meeting or something like that. There are a number of workshops. I mentioned the climate change, and there's some project prioritization and project solicitation workshops as well. And then there's the management group meetings. It's not required that the work group members attend the management group meetings, but you are certainly welcome to do so. This group will be selecting a chair, and that's part of the chair's responsibility will be to provide updates on the work group's progress to the management group. So I'm the coordinator and one of 4 coordinators, and our role is to provide meeting support for you all, to provide information needs to you all, and to provide support for assigned planning and project development tasks that will come down through the management group. My contact information is here. It's also in your packet, and you can email is great or phone is great too. So however you want to contact me is fine. And that's with any questions. I can help direct you to information that you need, or if you want to go over something in more depth at the next meeting, you can let me know that as well. We went over the meeting guidelines already, so I won't do that again. So the 4 work group meetings per year, I think I mentioned this already, but 1 integration workshop, and that's where all the work groups come together, and the management group as well, I believe. The climate change workshop, the project solicitation hearings, there'll be 2, 1 on each in different locations within the county. Not within the county, within the basin, sorry. Planning takes over. And then there'll be 2 draft plan hearings also, and those will be open to the public and for work groups. And then there are 6 management group meetings per year every other month. This is a schedule of the management group meetings, and that's also included in your packet. I won't really go through them, this is just information to let you know when they're meeting.
And those meeting dates are subject to a potential change. The original one in this month was changed because of major players availability. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask another question later. How many in this room have participated in any kind of planning effort like this? Besides me. Okay. So, the reason I'm asking, because there is a certain amount of commitment to doing this. And that's why we have coordinators and guidance to help everybody get through this. And in the end, we'll have a plan, but I do wanted to kind of get a feel for who had ever been involved in something like this. And it is a process that we have to follow. This one's probably a little tighter than most, not like a general plan process. This one's really connected to the DWR guidelines that we have to follow in terms of what we produce. General plans have to follow general plan guidelines, but the elements we have to look at are really driven by those guidelines. So we're not really making this up. It's part of what the state wants us to do in this effort. So hang in there with us. I can tell you that originally when we applied for the grant, we had more work groups and more meetings, and when we looked at it, we got a little less money than when we applied for. We were like, people are just going to go nuts. So we've tried to distill it down and not overwhelm everybody with 7 billion meetings, but try to make those meetings useful.
Thanks. That's good.
They don't need any more meetings.
And your participation here today is really appreciated. We had no idea who was coming.
Oh, Randy, isn't there a link between the process we go through here and the element and the chance of success for projects being funded? I mean, aren't the two tied together?
Yeah, they are.
So the more effort you put into the planning and coming up with a plan that's viable, the more likely the projects are to be funded at the end. That's been my experience.
What type of projects is the funding available for? I mean, are these for individual community services districts, or is it something that's beneficial for the entire upper Feather River watershed management group or basin?
My quick answer is both.
Yeah.
When we get to the project development section of this agenda, I have another question for everybody.
I'll go through a little bit what the guidelines are from DWR and what preferences, what kinds of project they give preferences to in a little bit. I thank you guys for hanging in there. This stuff is pretty dry at the beginning, I know, but it's kind of it's good background information for so that we know where we're headed. I did want to walk you guys through just parts of the website. It is featherriver.org, and the meeting notices and information. Studies and that sort of thing are all going to be posted here on the website, and there's also an interactive map which is really helpful. Speaking of maps, so this map back here is for you guys to draw on, to mark projects on, to identify areas of concern or whatever you guys want to put on it. And so take a pen, there's pens up there, and you can just put whatever you want to on the map within reason, and we'll put that into a GIS database that will help us keep track in a visual format of all the projects and areas of concern in the region. So those will that information will also end up here under maps on the website. We have a data management guy and GIS consultant who was doing this for us is Zeke Lunder, who's actually from the Westwood area, I believe, and he's putting this together for us. So there's a map here. There's some interactive. This is a disadvantaged community map here, and this is based on what Department of Water Resources has developed as far as community mapping. The yellow or brown areas are the disadvantaged communities.
We do have some in Upper Feather River.
No.
Oh.
Well, this is
Some are just.
We're told.
We'd like to think
That's
Is that-
Davis.
Yeah, well, that'd be.
We're told.
Let's.
Purple.
Let's go.
Go, man.
So they
That's what I
they
mean.
use state media.
Yes, the
Okay.
state media.
Oh,
I'm actually, yeah,
How does Gold Mountain get in as a disadvantaged community?
I don't know, we'd have to look at the DWR's,
I mean, it drops right into Clio
yeah, again,
and
this,
then goes into White Line. By
Is
that
there a
map.
tabular listing of the disadvantaged communities that we can,
Somebody
crank out
pulled
and
some
share?
strings there.
there is a list, there's actually a list that is in the 2005 plan.
I mean, look at the Almanor Peninsula, it's a disadvantaged community.
Well, let's see, so it's a disadvantaged community is defined as 80% of the state median income. And, which is almost 48,700 a year.
So that means state media must be about 60,880.
Yep.
And Plumas median's 55.3 or something like that, so.
Yeah, Tom, I asked Tom to come get some numbers on.
I've
Well,
played
Tom, does that
around-
look right to you?
Well, not for the communities, no,
No.
but,
But it might be defined differently. For instance, Almanor Peninsula, are they year-round, are they second homes?
well, and I assume they're talking family of four. I mean, when we talk median income, we talk family of four, and then we adjust it up or down.
Well, I'm learning that
True
The-
size of
the disadvantaged community or DAC is depending on what agency you're dealing with can be.
Yeah, when I Googled, I found some water stuff, and then Google was not my friend in this case. I found there was some park thing that also defined disadvantaged communities, but perhaps in a different way. Randy and I didn't talk about this until pretty late in the day yesterday, so I haven't had a lot of time to play around with it.
It's a
Tom,
good point, though, the WR, when we submit projects and grant applications through this process, they're gonna be looking at DWRs.
The criteria for disadvantaged community, not USDA.
Right.
Oh, because USDA's is.
Yeah, and for example, Portola didn't do well on a community development block grant because their poverty level is so low at 14%. Using, which is Plumas County's, is around 14%. But, and it's based on census. So every agency uses a different platform to make the decision of what a DAC is. And it's, as a district or a manager, it becomes nerve-wracking for your planners and grant writers to sort through the various criteria, because one agency will consider you and another won't.
Right, it's really up to you gotta pay particular attention to the funding source and what they want, whether it's
Right.
county, state, something else.
I think this effort, we're gonna try to sort this out and really understand it better, because I don't understand it all that well. Tom is trying to figure it out. Robert, you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, because we've always asked, we know that 2000 census data was the last economic, income. 2010 data from census didn't include, from what I've heard, correct me if that's not correct. So we've asked, who in the hell is creating this data?
They said they were using, this year's rounding of CDBG was using the
Should be
2010
2010, yeah.
census. And
It
so
is-
I'm wondering,
It is confusing who collected the data
Oh, yeah.
and,
right,
And then Randy and I right now are wrestling with a situation where we have a comparatively wealthy portion of a poor district that has some money and that's causing some frustration for us too. So,
Sounds
yeah,
like-
it's really.
Old Mill Ranch.
that would be helpful.
we will
Don't wanna
be,
name names.
through the plan development process, we will be looking at,
Mr. Ex-Supervisor, I'm sure you are aware of the old mill, right?
Yeah.
we'll be looking at refining the mapping somewhat on the DACs.
That's a wacky.
Well, yeah, and sometimes you have to dig into actual census tracts to get the right information.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with Becky Osborne, who's the county GIS person, and was involved in the last census. And she tried to wrestle with the Census Bureau over some of the boundaries and what those, and she's got a list of her frustration with working with the census on it. Cause she was trying to make it more realistic too. Anyway.
Okay, I think we're gonna need to start moving along here. So this is a good source of information. We'll post articles that we come across under news. So relevant articles, or there's a link to, we have documents, there's a link to the California Water Plan. Here's the draft MOU that you can download and share. The stakeholder involvement plan is here. Here's the 2013 water plan, California Water Plan. And then we have a number of documents that are local and then also Sierra-wide. So this will be changing all the time as we add things to it. We have the meetings. So there's a map here a calendar that identifies all the meetings. Here we are today. You can always check this place. Up here are links to the various meetings. There's the management group meetings and the work group meetings. And there'll be links to the live feed here, as well as to the agenda. And I'll post the meeting materials in here afterwards. Here is a summary of what the different work groups are going to be doing, and then a contact. These are live links that you can, are emails to that person, to the coordinator. Then we went over the maps, and then this is a work in progress, the collaborative mapping here. I'm not sure that Zeke has it up and ready yet, but eventually you'll be able to go to this map yourselves, and similar to writing it on this map here, you can just add a link, and then you can say what say what your project is, and there's a drop down, like what is it addressing, that kind of thing. This is still in progress, and we're working on it. I just wanted to give you a really brief introduction to the website and let you know that that is there. And then we should probably move on. Do folks want a break, or should we just keep going?
Just
Keep going. Okay. There is coffee and stuff at the back, don't forget, so just feel free to jump up and get some. Okay. Where am I? Where's my slideshow? There's a better way to do this, but let's see. So I think the next thing on our agenda is to select a chair and alternate. So I wanted to let you guys know what the chair's role and responsibility is going to be, so that they know what they're getting into. The work group chair will be selected by you all with input from the management group if necessary. And then it's recommended that an alternate also be chosen, so in case the chair can't make it to the management group meeting for some reason, the alternate can step in and make those updates to the management group. The chair will be someone that will collaborate with the coordinator to help keep the work group meetings on track and moving forward, since we do have very few meetings and we have a lot to cover in each meeting. It's going to be important to stay on track. It will be also another contact for you folks that will help you get the information you need. They'll be working closely with me. And then the chair will be providing updates and relaying information and recommendations from the work group to the management group. So they will be required that they attend the management group meetings, which again are every other month. The next one being on January 28th. So
Open it up for discussion.
yeah.
I nominate Robert Beecher.
Hey.
I
Second the nomination.
Wait,
was thinking
no.
that too.
I would have to get the okay from the city to spend my time on this. The
Well,
council was very concerned about my water history when they interviewed me. Unfortunately, 2 days after I sat in the chair, they came running to me because the state turned off all their water. And I spent my first 4 months working 50% of my time on it. But that's kind of getting behind us now.
well, if you're nominated and you can check with your council to see if they feel comfortable with doing that.
And I'm just looking at the calendar. I'm scheduled out of town at a League of Cities city managers meeting on the 28th of January.
You can always decline.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I could be an alternate, but I don't know. And it's also subject to the management groups, okay?
I don't think so.
I thought Uma said something about,
Can't do it.
With
Yeah, if-
input.
if nobody wants to do it, then the management group will help
Appoint?
appoint somebody.
Who you could have to volunteer.
Volunteers.
It should probably be somebody with planning experience. That eliminates a lot of people, I would think.
In your experience?
I don't have any.
Frank, how about you?
I've had a little bit over the years, I mean, in other agencies.
You wanna be the chair and Bob be the alternate?
You've been at a lot of the meetings already.
Yeah.
Because you're pretty
Yes,
good.
I would be interested in doing it. Sure.
Is there a consensus on the group?
Yeah, and I can
Consensus?
double check the calendar. I'm not sure when this meeting starts. It's in San Francisco. I think it's like 3, maybe. So
So
we
you
could do
can-
this.
You can be considered for alternate
Yep.
then? Group agree to that? Okay.
Aye.
Yeah.
This is consensus at its best.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody's standing up, jumping on the table saying no.
All right.
All right, thank you.
That was, thank you very much.
We get a stipend.
Okay, so we're gonna dig into the resource management strategies. So the DWR guidelines direct the regions to consider and document the resource management strategies in their own plans. And the resource management strategies are identified in the California Water Plan. They are a technique, program, or policy that helps local entities manage their water and related resources. We have to address them as part of meeting the water-related goals and objectives of the plan. And that's both on a statewide and regional level. So the goals and objectives will be brought to the management group for consideration at their next meeting in January. So this part is an identification of the resource management strategies, and then we'll be digging into addressing them and making recommendations after those goals and objectives are adopted by the management group. So during the first meeting, we brought the management strategies to the management group and requested input from them, but what they would like to see is that the work groups themselves select which strategies they'd like to work on. So the management strategy objectives, they've been divided into, I think it's 7 objectives. To reduce water demand, improve flood management, improve the operational efficiency and transfers, increase water supply, improve water quality, practice resource stewardship, and then new for the 2013 California Water Plan is they've added people and water.
I have a question. What does the third one mean?
End up in that category.
Improve operational efficiency and transfers?
That, so if you go,
Oh, between agencies?
I think so. Like Indian Valley, right? You guys were gonna transfer some water to,
Yeah, I was being looked at, didn't get very far.
so in your handouts, there's a list of these management strategies. It's right on the top of your packets. And there's a matrix and a table, and it talks about what each one of these objectives means and what it stands for. So for operational efficiency and transfers, a lot of this has to do with conveyance, both the regional and through the Delta is another one that we probably won't be addressing. Includes, yes, water transfers, as you mentioned, and then the system reoperation also. So that would be the improvement of existing operations and management procedures of water facilities to increase their efficiency and reliability. So using this matrix that's in your handout, one of our tasks for today is to identify which of these that the group would like to address. I have gone through and made some recommendations
Let me see. And we can go through those one by one.
Let's do that.
So these were laid out by the state.
So these are identified in the state water plan, and we have to address them. Some of them are going to be, they don't apply to this region. But, so we'll have to go through and select which ones we feel should be addressed and do apply. So if you look on the screen, it didn't show up very well in the copies here, but I've kind of grayed out the ones that don't really seem to relate to this to this work group. And I can, so what I'll do is we'll go through this list, decide which ones we want to work on, and then I'll send a revised list that just identifies those ones and then some information on how we can address each one. So I think I'll go through them one by one and we can say yes or no. Agricultural water use efficiency. Seems to apply to the agricultural land stewardship, if everyone agrees with that. Urban water use efficiency. This is the efficient management of water resources for beneficial uses, preventing waste, or accomplishing additional benefits with the same amount of water.
Yes.
Okay.
What was it on 60 Minutes last Sunday in Orange County? They had a little thing about the treated wastewater, and then both of them drank from it.
What was that?
60 Minutes had a treated wastewater system in Orange County where
Their toilet to tap thing.
toilet to tap.
We need to change that description.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't see the word wastewater or discharge or wastewater treatment in any of this.
In any of
It
these?
seems
Well,
like that's-
and
It would fall under-
blazing through here,
That had
like
to
maybe
be
under number 11, this number cycle.
Or even number 17, pollution prevention.
It's like,
Because if you have an aging sewer system that's leaking sewage
Yeah,
from
the
the
word
groundwater,
wastewater didn't appear anywhere.
Well,
that's a humongous issue for us,
yeah,
for this whole American Valley.
it's an issue for all of the
They
watershed.
would kind of put that in these, some of these descriptions.
And that's something that, we're not limited to these either. So if there is an issue that we feel is important and needs to be brought forward, then we should make that recommendation to the management group for inclusion.
That's important.
Number 17, pollution prevention.
Yeah, it's kind of vague wording, kind of vague language. Is it air pollution?
But one of the things that, why I asked the question about planning, often you end up with these broad kind of issues and policies, and some of it's feel good and some of it, sometimes you just can't dwell down into the very specifics, but as Uma said, you're not limited by this.
So then, I think you should
It's such a
ultimately
common,
add that.
NPDES permits, discharge permits. Those are such a common thing for almost everybody, well, not you, Tom, but
I'm not on that actually.
Frank,
no, I'm on waste discharge requirements, I don't discharge.
but it's a waste discharge, it's a WDR,
WDR,
so you still have to have a state permit.
of course.
Portolas, NPDES, we do, Greenville,
WDR,
WDR.
just wrote the check.
Grizzly Lake has an NPDS.
Just wrote the check.
But even the wording is kind of missing from the WDR category too. It just seems to me, it seems like it's a real common.
And in my perspective, I think I totally agree with you, we just need to make sure, like I said, we can get it in.
So some of these will be addressed by more than one work group too. So we would just address the municipal portion of whatever of these objectives. So flood management, policies and practices related to educating the public, preparing for and mitigating damage related to, responding to, and recovering from flooding. Is this something
We don't really
I don't think this.
no one has any levies or?
We flood every time.
Every time you run the wastewater treatment.
That's right.
Flood emergency management is one of the examples it gives. Is that something that folks get into?
Some of the communities do. I mean, in high water, theoretically, Chester goes under water.
So
Some of the areas within the CSDs get inundated.
Does the group feel that that's something that we should include in our discussion or recommendations, or would you prefer to leave that to?
I would leave it just, as you said earlier, they're gonna overlap.
Okay.
In other processes. There's linkages between the various components,
Yes.
but not necessarily the main focus.
Okay.
You know? And that's maybe when they have their integration discussion.
Mhm.
They can talk about those linkages.
Right. Okay. Does the group feel comfortable with that? Okay.
So we got it in or now?
That was an in.
In it.
In for that item?
For the item, yes, number 3.
Okay. 3, but the last bullet only, or? For the whole thing?
I think it would be the whole thing at this point, and then we could further refine it as we get into discussing it. So the next one is number 4, conveyance, and this really has to do with the San Joaquin River Delta. Doesn't seem to be relevant to this area too much unless I'm
Is this
missing
enable
something.
transfers down south? Is this what we're talking about going through the delta?
Well, I do think though that gets into Randy's larger discussion he had earlier, which is I think
Yeah.
what Jesse's talking about,
Okay.
is that we are the source.
Mhm.
And this does get conveyed.
Mhm.
Everything that leaves here gets conveyed.
Right. Okay.
Whether it's, again, the focus, it certainly needs to be recognized that every time we flush a toilet, basically, that is going to somehow, some way percolate into the state water system.
Okay.
So,
As far as funding coming back this way too, bringing money into the county.
and Randy
Sure.
mentioned that earlier, yeah, that
Yeah.
We
Okay.
don't wanna eliminate opportunities to bring money up here.
Okay.
So I would say this is a yes.
so it's
Keep
an
it in.
It may
investment.
not be applicable to everybody, but it's certainly gonna be applicable to some.
Okay. And that there's also the regional and local conveyance, so that would be within the district as well. And leave that one in as well?
Yes.
Okay. System reoperation, number 6. So the improvement of existing operations and management procedures of water facilities to meet needs more efficiently and reliably rather than relying solely on infrastructure improvements. So through minor physical modifications to existing facilities, though may be necessary.
The city's doing that right now.
Yeah, okay.
That's
As a
the one that
result-
kept CSD alive, the IVCSD alive is operating different, stay afloat.
Okay. Okay, is everyone good with that one? The water transfers, so this is what you were referring to, so keep that one in. Everyone's good with that? Conjunctive management, number 8. The coordinated and planned use and management of both surface water and groundwater resources to maximize the availability and reliability of water supplies. Is that at the municipal level that we address that, or should that be through floodplains, meadows, water bodies work group, or?
Again, the city's dealing with that.
With both, right?
Yeah.
I would leave it in.
Yeah.
Again, there's linkages, it definitely affects the floodplains and the meadows, and, but the city has surface, wells, springs.
Well, and especially with what we saw last year with the curtailment,
Right.
where those that had a spring that they were using were basically told stop. But there is that relationship between surface and groundwater. Cannot be ignored. Especially now we have a groundwater rate of state law.
Okay, D-cell.
I'd leave it in. We've got two wells, one private and one public, that have high sodium.
Really?
And it's so expensive to put in an RO system or a treatment system. They're basically a useless public water supply. So
What's the source of that?
something in the American Valley, there's some type of a fracture zone or volcanic, I mean, God knows, it used to be an old lake bed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you can pick it up in private well, there's a kind of a line that it follows, but we're just lucky that way, I guess.
Well, you don't have uranium like Delaware.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Well, it's also gonna fall under number 11, because if you recycle, depending upon what removal system you use, you're gonna have to deal with the brackish water from that removal system. So they kind of tie together in that respect.
Okay.
PG&E snow. It's probably another. PG&E cloud seeds, the Eleanor Basin. At one point, there was the location of a number of cloud seeding facilities throughout the upper watershed. I do not believe there's a file the planning department has that they're active. The PG&E, I believe, still cloud seeds the Eleanor Basin. And the reason they call it PG&E snow because it's kind of popcorn. That's what they claim. Just so you know that it is going on in the upper watershed. I don't think this group needs to really address it, but just for your information. There were a number of hearings on it up in the Eleanor Basin 2 years back, where some people were questioning the safety of it because there's a process that they use these burners. And PG&E got really raked over the coals for it. What they call it, nano silver iodine.
With propane generators.
Propane generators. And PG&E brought in scientists to try to deal with the angry group that was concerned about the health issues. Just so you know, a part of this process is to learn kind of the issues, and if you didn't know what was going on, you didn't know.
Is that something the group wants to develop recommendations?
I don't think so.
No.
Well,
Okay.
the only recommendation that came out of the last time they overseeded in a spring storm and it brought branches down, knocked out power lines. We went to PG&E and said, as communities, who's gonna pay for this? You're creating water for your hydroelectric, and there's eventually gonna end up in a reservoir going to Southern California, but we're up here with all this damage as a result. So if we had any comment, we can just say PG&E will pay for the damages created by their cloud seeding.
Okay, so I have yes for municipal recycled water.
Mhm.
Number 12, surface storage, CalFed and state level.
There's no more CalFed.
Bay Delta, is that right?
Well, there's no CalFed program. A lot of this stuff comes from the old CalFed. 84 was written when CalFed was still around.
Does this group want to discuss that at all? Or?
Talking about reservoirs, right?
Yes, it has to do with those reservoirs down in the
Is that-
valleys.
Is there any more in that 12
sorry.
box?
Well, the 13.
13.
13 is the regional local reservoirs.
Anybody
Oh, that's
here on
for
the
this.
reservoir? We've got a listing of them in the existing plan.
We have old ones.
That doesn't affect us.
So agree to not include number 12.
We're not one of the 5 sites.
And so number 13, the regional and
Yes.
local storage. You guys have, yeah. Okay, drinking water treatment and distribution.
Yes, yes.
Number 15, groundwater remediation and aquifer remediation.
Yes.
Yes.
Number 16, matching water quality to water use. This is a management strategy that recognizes not all water uses require the same water quality, and that suitability for one use may not be suitable for another. So what might be a water quality problem for one use may not be for another, so it's matching up those uses.
Does it affect anything else?
I think it would affect us, especially if we focused on recycled water out of wastewater facilities. Because there's different levels of treatment that you can put on a golf course versus putting on the park. Or you can treat it all the way up to where there is no restricted use for it. You can put it back in the ground and recharge your groundwater. So that could be a way of saying, okay, well, we're going to do this project over here for this golf course, but we're going to do this project over here to inject it back in the ground. So we're kind of offsetting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the city tried to negotiate using its arsenic wells this summer, putting it into the Middle Fork so we could use another source that had been curtailed, but they wanted a wastewater discharge permit,
I see.
which would have taken 6 months to put the water in a creek that would go eventually to the Middle Fork. So it's
Leave it in.
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Does anybody know about Brageland Water's Long Lake Reservoir? Robert, do you know anything? Anybody know anything about it?
Just a little bit that it exists, and it's I think a pre-1914.
It's drinking water, right? That's their drinking water source.
It said it's
Yeah.
1938 on the list. I'm looking at the old IRWM, 1,478, looks like acre feet.
It wasn't curtailed because I think it's a senior water right.
Is that the mill pond?
No,
It's up the hill.
higher up.
Eventually, we want to get those folks involved in this. They're not here today, but we're trying.
Well, and that we had a lot of grief from constituents wondering why they were watering golf courses down there, and the city was being shut off for municipal supply. And you just have to. It's the seniority of the water rights.
Same issue, Plumas Pines, because their irrigation source comes off of James Creek through Medora Lake. Well, they're not connected into our drinking water system, so it's real tough to deal with this past year.
So moving on to 17, pollution prevention.
Yes. Yes.
18 is salt and salinity management.
Yeah.
It's probably more appropriate than the previous one we talked about.
Well,
salt.
we use chlorine bleach to disinfect the wastewater, and then we neutralize it with sodium hypochlorite. So those two salts combined go into the Middle Fork, and that's a NPDES requirement to reduce that. So that's
It's
a
important.
big deal.
Number 19 is urban stormwater runoff management.
Anybody dealing with that?
We're
Robert?
supposed to, but we don't.
You know, I saw something, again, part of this is information. US EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers are working on a new definition for waters of the United States. Federal Registry is about this thick, triple lined, and CSAC, which is the National Association of Counties, put out a 15-page letter recently. It's really controversial on the definition, and because it could be, it's tied to navigable waters, and there's a definition of navigable waters, but it could roll all the way upstream to drainage ditches along roads. And it's a big concern that you would have to get a 404 permit to clean your drainage ditches along roads. Also, there was a question about the stormwater runoff and whether that would then be exempt or not. So just want to give you that background. I don't know where that rule's going. It seems like people across the country are upset about it. And then, you know, the quote unquote mantra was, we're trying to simplify the rule so everybody understands what it is, but right now nobody understands what it is, just to give you that idea. So if you've got stormwater and that you're somehow managing, maybe that's something this group wants to look at too. Anybody doing that? I mean, you're supposed to in the city. You know, you think about it, rains today, runs off the street out in front of the building, it gets into the system. Anybody managing any kind of thing like that?
We do education on, you know, options for, preventing runoff and creating permeable surfaces and to, recharge aquifers rather than storing runoff. But we don't involve in managing, but education.
Plymouth County, do you guys have?
I don't know. To be honest with
You
you,
have the storm drainage.
we have the storm drainage, and my guess is we're probably not dealing with it. And I know that Mike Cronky was going to be here for this meeting, and I don't know why he didn't come back and join us, because maybe he could answer some of those questions. I can't. I just wanted to point that out, that that rule is really, could impact everybody in a way we don't expect. So we're going to watch it from the staff side.
Do you want this group to comment on that?
You guys, having
I mean,
said
it's not
that,
really part of this process.
not on that, but just be aware that you could look at it as part of this working group. I'm not saying do that. I just wanted you sharing a little information.
You have it bolded.
Huh?
You're suggesting that we do.
I think I am, but maybe we're just
Well, you can throw it in there for now.
You can throw it in for now, and then it didn't go anywhere.
I mean, it's even navigable waters, just like stormwater. There are people that storm, but that's not what it really is.
There's also excess landscape irrigation
Right.
water flowing into storm drains, and the recent regulations, talk about that
Right.
as supposed to be controlled as well.
I mean, we're dealing with that as part of the drought in the city by telling people, no, if it's running off into the stormwater, curb and gutters, but you gotta stop.
Larry, you dealing with that too?
Always, yeah.
So I would suggest we leave it in, because we will have to address it in the plan as overall, and whether we decide as a group to make no recommendations on it, that would be fine. But we could at least come back to it and make a recommendation to the management group at some point.
Probably doesn't fit in the other groups anyway.
Right.
The workshops, it's the only group that fits in.
Right, that's a good point. Does that work for people? Okay. Number 20 is agricultural land stewardship.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, we irrigate ranch land. So I wouldn't throw it out just yet.
Anybody else here do land applications?
Well, parks, but that's not ag.
Would that come under
Yeah,
the
the
conjunctive?
ag is the headwaters of our entire system, so it's very much involved, I would think.
Well, the ag work group, I would think, would.
They will be addressing this one, but municipal group can make recommendations on it if they would like to. I mean, there's also the
I think I'm not seeing a bunch of enthusiasm.
And you're
For
not.
the look on the faces.
we are choosing to do a lot, and that is going to be a lot of work.
Leaving a lot on the list.
Yeah.
I would say comment when we have all the groups meet together possibly on it, and see what they come up with,
It's a good idea.
and then we can make comments on that. But we don't need to address it directly in this group.
Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
21, ecosystem restoration. Again, this will be addressed probably in the uplands and forest group, as well as the floodplains, meadows, and water bodies work group.
One thing I would say about that is in the last IRWM, that seems to be the one of the big major focuses of the projects that were identified in that plan. This one's more has the municipal component, which made me pretty happy because we're not forgetting what's going on with the communities.
So leave that one out? Okay. Number 23 is forest management.
That's a work group all by itself.
Yeah. Okay. 23, land use planning and management. We definitely have some, the counties and the municipalities and Boylton in that here. Leave that one in? Okay. 24, recharge area protection.
Yes,
Yes?
I would say yes.
Anyone think we should leave that one in? Good?
Yes.
Okay.
It probably applies to everyone,
Yeah.
being what we are, the headlines.
Yes. So sediment management.
Applies to reservoirs, right, especially if you have an old one, 1864, old one.
Right. Yep. Okay. Leave that one in?
It's another overlap.
Yes. Sure. Watershed management. Process of creating and implementing plans, programs, projects, and activities to restore, sustain, and enhance watershed functions.
I would say yes on that. That felt like everybody
Yeah.
supports everyone.
Okay. Leave that one in. 27, economic incentives. This has to do with water pricing, water market policies that may influence water management,
I think that's
wastewater volume.
that's a regional overlap, again, as the county, or at least part of the watershed, is renegotiating the cost of the water in Lake Davis through the state water contractors. It doesn't affect all of us, but it certainly affects the flood control district. So I don't know where that would be placed.
Well, and you're also looking at, the supply and demand curves and pricing for water and wastewater treatment. Yeah, that's the reality there. You raise the price of water, my neighbor won't run his sprinkler even when it's been raining for the last month and a half, which goes on a regular basis still. And you go, why? Well, it's remotely set up, so they don't even know it's probably even set up.
And that's what you saw during the drought. Municipalities told folks to cut back on their water usage, then found out they couldn't run their water system because people weren't paying the bill because they weren't using the water. So they had to put a surcharge for the drought on top of the water. Then the constituents wanted a 218 process to raise the rate. Economics.
Should at least be looked at to a certain extent.
Everyone agree to keep it in?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't see where it would fit in the other ones
Yeah.
that well.
Irrigation water maybe? I said it comes
Yeah,
from districts.
irrigation water.
Outreach and engagement. So the use of public and communication tools and practices by water agencies that provide the opportunity for public groups and individuals to contribute to positive water management outcomes. Okay. Leave that one in.
We're almost through.
Yeah. 2 more. Oh, no, 3 more. Water and culture. Increasing the increasing the awareness of how cultural values, uses, and practices are affected by water management, and how these have an effect on water management as well. Even regulations reflect cultural values, such as when water is viewed as a commodity rather than as a cultural resource.
You need Trina to explain that.
I know. I'm sure they will be addressing this one.
Is this the value of water? People don't want to pay for water, because it's free. Is that, I mean, what is cultural values?
It's kind of touchy-feely at your level.
This was new for the 2013.
Okay,
That's why I see this wording.
we have some sort of cultural value to have a lawn.
Gotcha, I see.
You know, from the anthropologists, and so I don't know if it really is something we should look at in this group, but just kind of give you a flavor. It's probably geared more towards, you know, other kinds of culture, but we all have our own cultural values as Americans and as subgroups of Americans, whatever they may be.
Well, so what work group is gonna address the Native American
They will be,
values?
I think that's gonna come into the forestry and the meadows and
Cause it's,
floodplains, for sure.
you know, the Maidus have like 15 different words for fire because of the cultural value of the landscape, and I'm sure they probably have the same for water.
Trina told me Trina Cunningham's the Native American representative on the steering committee, and she told me after the meeting last Friday that they're working with the forest on what they call TEK, which is traditional ecological knowledge, and that's something that's been, there's a group working on that, i.e. The moonlight fire restoration, and had to do with springs. So it will get addressed, Robert, but I think it'll probably be in the forest and
Right.
giving you an idea of that.
Not our job.
can we leave that out?
Yep.
Water dependent recreation. Do folks have recreation facilities on reservoirs or, yes? Okay.
It's an economic driver in this county.
Okay.
I think it overlaps.
Okay. We'll leave that one in. And then other strategies, and this is probably something that will be identified and assigned by the management group, although we talked about including a specific wastewater and NPDES discharge permit. So is that one that we want to include under this one?
I think as a group, I think we need to address it. It's like you said, it's a huge issue here.
Okay.
We got infrastructure on the ground that's 50, 60, 70 years old. And if you've got an NPDES permit, you're getting fined if you violate your permit. There's nothing else they can do. They can't say, okay, well, we're gonna do this. You guys clean up your act. No, it's a fine. It's a mandatory fine right off the bat.
It's also not well defined in any of it.
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
We've definitely got some systems in the ground, from my experience, just on the eastern end of the county that really need to be looked at close.
Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'll refine our list and I'll take out the ones we're not going to address and then I'll kind of make a new matrix and send it out to the group. As part of what we do with them now is we have to develop recommendations, and I think I would like to suggest that I pull together the relevant parts out of the California Water Plan and out of the 2005 Upper Feather River Water Plan, and pull those out for each one of these management strategies and then send them to you all for you to consider and work through with your boards and staff, and then to come to our next work group meeting with some recommendations and that we can all discuss as a group. Does that process, so we have limited time other than, we don't want to spend 6 to 8 hours at our next management group, our next work group meeting, I'm guessing. So I'm trying to think of a process that kind of keeps things rolling along. And does that sound good to you guys, or some feedback? Great.
It does, I think that's a smart way to proceed rather than trying to do it all in a meeting.
So i.e. you get homework.
Right.
Homework as well.
Well, then you get a chance to discuss it with your boards and develop those through them, which is more inclusive, I think. Helps get more input.
There were clearly a number of these that were, I think as a group we saw as a lower priority. Might have some cursory involvement. And I think you were listening carefully enough. You could earmark those as you list them
Okay.
as priorities, as being a minor interest or whatever. like,
Nice to know
Let
as
us-
opposed to assumption.
yeah,
The main focus in the work.
might be able to focus in the future.
And we could bring that prioritization back to the next meeting so you could have an idea of what it is.
Or I could
It's a
also,
good idea.
I could also send it out, send the list out prioritized, and then you guys could give me feedback and we could work on it that way as well. We will be, at the next management group meeting, Frank will be giving an update to the management group, and as part of that, we'll be providing the list of the management strategies we'll be working on to them for information. So we could do it that way if you like. So that works for everyone?
Works.
The homework? Okay, great. So it'll probably take me a couple of weeks to pull that information out together, and then I'll send it out to the work groups to you guys by email. Okay. So, I think it's important to do an overview of project development at this meeting. We're also working on developing a project solicitation package that will be considered by the management group in January, and then it will be sent out to you all to get some project applications developed. So I wanted to go through that process with you guys and just
Before
kind
we
of
get
explain.
started, can I ask my question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna put everybody on the spot. Name one major problem related to water that you have for your various jurisdictions. And let's start over here with
I'll
Jesse.
start, I'm losing 2.6 million gallons a month drinking water out of my distribution system.
Okay. Robert?
Leakage, treatment, supply.
That's all.
All the above?
Yeah, exactly.
Mine basically right now is arsenic levels not meeting the MCL in the drinking water. And then future plans is to have one of my wastewater treatment plants, water fully recycled back on the belt.
Water supply.
Infrastructure.
Leakage and supply.
Larry?
NPDES permit compliance.
The infrastructure. Okay. So you kind of get where we're going with this. You're identifying your issues and problems. With that, we'll just go on from there.
Okay. So the projects that will be developed through this plan, they are the vehicle for implementation of the water management plan when it's completed. The projects will have to address the plan objectives, which we'll be looking at the next management group meeting. And those objectives will establish the targets that we'll be striving for with the projects. Issues we talked about just now, they'll be identified through the work group level, from the tribes, and also from the disadvantaged communities. We'll be developing the project solicitation package and sending that out. And then the process from there goes to a vetting of those projects and then a prioritization. The guidelines from DWR for this process have specific requirements that have to be met. And so the vetting is to make sure that those minimum requirements are met. And then the projects will be included in the plan and then eligible for funding. This is so these are the eligibility requirements from DWR. The projects have to be multiple benefits. They're looking for projects that address more than one issue. So that's water supply reliability, water conservation, and water use efficiency, stormwater capture, storage, cleanup, treatment, and management, non-point source pollution reduction, management, and monitoring, groundwater recharge management projects, conveyance of reclaimed water for distribution to users, water banking, exchange, reclamation, improvement of water quality, planning, implementation of multi-purpose flood management programs, or drinking water treatment and distribution. So the projects developed will have to address one of these issues in them.
It's not many.
Huh?
It's not
many.
Yeah. So DWR gives preferences to the multi-benefit projects and to projects that effectively integrate water management with land use planning and resolve significant water-related conflicts within or between regions, and those that address statewide priorities or the critical water supply and quality needs for disadvantaged communities. These are the minimum considerations. This presentation is in your packet, and it will be available online too, so you can go through this. It's also identified in the manual that I'll talk about in just a minute. So I'm not going to actually read all these, but I think the primary ones are that it has to address the plan's goals and objectives, and then it goes into where the project is, as far as feasibility of the project, the costs, financing, and status, and then whether it contributes to climate change or reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This is just a flow chart. Again, this is in your handout, so it won't require a lot of talking about, but in general, the projects will be solicited, they'll go and submitted, then they'll go through a review process, and some will get screened out depending on whether they meet the minimum requirements or not, and then they'll go into the review and selection process with the management group, and then prioritization. So I kind of went through this already. We hope to get the project solicitation package to the management group in January, and then if they approve it at that point, then we'll be releasing it in February. And then they'll be scheduling the project solicitation hearings. The solicitation hearings those are the ones that will happen in various locations in the county, within the region, and there'll be 2 of them, and it's intended to pull in projects that might not come through the work groups also. So an opportunity for folks who aren't involved in the work groups to propose projects and have them be considered for inclusion in the plan. And then the management group, with input from the work groups, will be developing and ranking and prioritization criteria. Kind of already went through these ones. This is a timeline. So the project development timeline will occur over a 7 to 8 month period, probably by the time it's all wrapped up. There is a final prioritization hearing or workshop kind of after the projects are prioritized and selected for inclusion in the plan, and it's intended to be kind of a last look at these projects to make sure we have a really attractive portfolio of projects that go into the plan for DWR's consideration in the future.
So can I jump in here?
Yes.
Obviously, what we're doing here is structuring these projects, or i.e. problem-solving efforts in my language, to a particular framework for funding through DWR. I also look at it as projects that are solving problems that there is potential for other funding sources, i.e. unidentified in the future. So if they don't make the priority list, I'm not going to get so stressed about it, because the exercise will set the table for increased opportunities to, 1, identify other funding, and 2, create a description of the project or a formula for that project that would aid in successful funding in the future from other sources. So yes, there's an emphasis for the DWR structure, but I certainly would not limit my thinking to that structure totally in what comes out of this. And
Right, well, in the past, we've helped people and programs, CDBG as opposed to USDA, where we've been able to help, and that could, your project not being accepted for this process might set the table for doing something better.
so eyes wide open, think of it in those kinds of terms.
And the requirements for the application submittal, they are, the way they're structured and developed is, it does make them, kind of more ready for those future and other grant opportunities also. they get the package that you'll have at the end of that will be pretty much ready to go for whatever grant opportunities come up. I'm not sure I made sense on that, but anyway. So there is a project development manual that was developed as part of one of the other IRWM region processes, and that's included in your packet. I think it's towards the end. It gives a really good step-by-step approach for how to put together these applications. It was geared towards disadvantaged communities and stakeholders that have limited staffing and financial abilities to pull a package together. It includes tools and examples to help people to help districts and entities put together the applications. So this we will be putting it on the website as information. It's included in your packets. We will be looking at revising the templates that are in there for the management. We'll be taking those to the management group in January, and our hope is to be able to streamline the templates and the project solicitation forms so that it's easier and more straightforward to pull together a package.
I still find your disadvantaged community map that you put up there to be kind of a shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
we're
that
gonna
some
dwell
of
in,
the was that just a draft?
No, that was
Is that
DWR's
actually put
data.
out by DWR?
Yeah.
Because it's got places that
Mhm.
should be on it and places that shouldn't, so.
And that's certainly something that we should refine through this plan update process with your input. So for next steps. So part of this, we have to prepare a baseline technical study for the region, and that baseline technical study is going to be the basis for the regional description and issues, identification of issues that will go into the plan update, and also the baseline conditions for the basin. So in one of your handouts was a call for studies, and that's we're distributing that through the work groups to collect information, and the information collected will go into a database that will be map-based, similar to the one that I showed where you could put a pinpoint on it. And so it identifies water supply assessments, municipal service reviews, capital improvement plans. That's the kind of information that we will need to develop our update to the regional description and issues and the baseline conditions. We're going to start with the 2005 plan as our starting point and build up from that. So we're looking for assistance from all of you to help provide that information through the studies that you have.
Hydrological studies also?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that'd be great.
We're gonna get some information in the mail.
And if you have links or PDFs, those would be great. And you can send those to me, and then we'll put them into our database. And we'll hopefully have a really, excellent library of information at the end.
it's a big effort, a lot to it. There's some advantages at the end in terms of funding sources and funds coming in the region, but it is, and it's not a simple issue here. It's very complex, even though I'm used to turning my tap on and flushing my toilet and not really thinking too much more about it, but obviously there's a lot more about it. I worry about the drought continuing because what kind of stressors is that going to put on California? We have another drought year like the last one. We had Robert participated, the county has a drought task force that met monthly during the drought to try to sort out some of the issues. So it is a very complex world we're living in terms of water. Water in the West, Mark Twain said it is whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over.
He also said there's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
And a gentleman who wrote a book on the Colorado River, one of my favorite rivers because I'm originally from Wyoming, called Water in the West is worth more than gold, in the way it really is. So west of the 100th meridian, we are dry. And the east doesn't always understand that. And that's the world we live in, the arid west.
So the more information we can collect and the more participation we get from everyone, the better the plan's gonna be. So I just really encourage.
How detailed information are you looking for here? You're looking for production numbers, water plant, consumption numbers, losses, things like that, or is that helpful to this purpose of it?
Whatever information that you guys want to provide, that will help us build the plan.
What a big mailbox.
An overall observation, we have a lot of aging infrastructure in the Upper Feather River watershed. We have some infrastructure, this comes from the land use planning side, that should have been done better or more enhanced over the years. I'm not identifying any one particular area. There's now a pretty strong link between land use planning and water planning that the state wants us to follow. We as counties, and we broadened it out beyond Plumas County, have approved a lot of land divisions, 5-acre ranchettes, on-site sewer and water, especially in the western foothills, that are sort of on the margin for water supply. And in some regards, sort of the wastewater tends to find the cracks the wells are in. There are issues that we need to look at in terms of all this. Part of the problem, and again, we'll go back, how this effort should in fact lead to some roadway for improvement of our infrastructure for this group to go on to the future. Whether it wasn't created right in the first place through the permitting process is probably not the issue, it's how to move forward and solve these problems.
Well, when you went around the table, the word leakage
Yeah.
was mentioned a lot.
Randy, you bring up an interesting point because most of us here are representing a community of sorts. Right. And a lot of the discussion this summer at the Drought Task Force was outside of these communities where you have entire populations with these old wells that aren't that deep, that are potentially drying up, but also a good candidate for leakage of the antiquated septic system into that drinking water supply. So who's handling that through this process? The county?
One of the tasks of
Would that be the county?
One of the tasks is to develop a community vulnerability assessment, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Right, so who does that?
So we'll be working with Department of Environmental Health.
And that, I'm gonna be honest with you, we got a hole in our work program on who's actually going to do that. Just because of the administrative capacity of the Plumas County Environmental Health, we put money in there for them to help work on it, and Jerry doesn't have the staff, so we're still trying to figure that one out, but that is something we have to do. Nitrates in wells. I think Chilkoot may have a problem. Where do they come from? I'm not going to try to guess at this point, but yeah, that is something we have to work on.
And is it something you could eventually bring to this group?
Maybe, or at least the information on what it is would be shared.
Right. It's like, in Jesse's case, in Taylorsville, they handle wastewater and lighting, right, and fire.
In the park.
And a park and a pool. But the drinking water situation right outside of the district, which is still in the community, is in their sphere, but not part of its jurisdiction.
Well,
and I think
Jesse and I live in a neighborhood
that
doesn't have any of the district services.
Right. But you have all the issues, especially stormwater runoff when it comes to flooding. For some of the folks.
Some folks.
Yeah.
And there's a linkage between land use planning and that particular issue.
Right.
It's probably not as bad here as it is in other places.
Right.
That I've worked. But it is an issue. again, people are used to turning on the tap and flushing the toilet and not really thinking about where it
Right,
comes
but
from.
what I'm saying is as part of the plan, it may not be in any working group, but the county staff is going to be addressing some of that in the plan so that the plan is comprehensive.
Mhm.
I have a question on the disadvantaged communities. How many folks have had municipal services reviews done through LAFCO? And were DACs identified through that process, do you know?
Through LAFCO?
There is a document out where they did the sphere of influences for the entire eastern portion of the county. They're working on the northern portion now. So direct MSRs, I don't know if they've been updated, but that was going to be their next step.
We're updating there's a whole group that LAFCO's on their December 8th meeting.
Right.
Ours, East Quincy's.
Okay, so they did start it because that's how they were going to do it.
But they don't determine the disadvantage, the state median household income.
No.
That's the question you have.
No, I've seen it
Sometimes
in the
through
LAFCO
LAFCO.
documents too, yes.
Sometimes they refine it a little bit, but it's usually based on the cities will, I think cities have to, don't they through their housing element or something have to update their disadvantaged unincorporated communities. So.
We would certainly claim Portola as a DAC, but
Mm-hmm.
depending on the agency you're trying to get funded from, as we discussed earlier,
Right.
it doesn't matter what we say.
Right. Well, sometimes through the LAFCO MSR process, I think that they can refine those DACs a little bit.
I thought I saw something about that in a review, I don't remember right now, I looked at it for a number of months, but I'm curious now.
Okay.
Back, yeah.
And that's John Benoit, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I will connect with John about it too.
It would be interesting to know what LAFCO does use as their benchmark for what a DAC is.
Mhm.
The criteria,
I've worked-
sources of information,
So I know some of the LAFCOs use DWR data, but some develop their own analysis.
Greenhorn had a sphere of influence study last
Last year.
summer, and I just was going through one of the piles of paper, and I sort of hadn't really looked at it. But I thought they kind of glossed over that. Do you recall?
I don't think it was even mentioned.
You know, if you give me 2 minutes, I'll run. I think it's on one at the top of one of my piles, and
That's
like
okay.
something.
We can just request the studies, I think, from John and ask for him to give us a little.
I think we need more work on DAC. I mean, Robert, you brought it up last week, and I gave Tom a heads up, and we're all sort of trying to figure out what it really is, and what, I think maybe it's one thing for one agency, and another thing for another.
in the scheme of things, does it really even matter?
It does when you're applying for loan grants, they give you a
I
percent.
realize that.
That's what I mean.
Right.
It seems
Just
to be
like
more.
with the cap and trade money.
Yeah.
Portola is, they're using environmental, not just the DAC, but you have to have an environmental problem along with being a DAC to get the cap and trade money. Portola is a federally designated non-attainment air quality zone by US EPA, and they're not even on the list.
Yeah.
Why? Can't get an answer out of anyone.
And what I'm seeing, it comes up more and more and more, DAC, and everybody, I'm going, what is it, how do we deal with it? It's some sort of barometer for measuring disadvantage of communities, but when you really drill down to the specifics, you go, does it make sense? We saw a map that some of us are questioning, doesn't make sense from what we know.
Right.
And we're gonna try to sort that out some more. I think through this process, we're gonna have to, but I think it would benefit the effort, and I'm talking about staff, get a better handle on it.
Well, and I was blowing through median incomes yesterday for all the counties, because a lot of lists are produced by county and not statewide. And, we always think Plymouth County is poor, but in what do we got, 57 or 58 counties?
58 counties.
58. We're like number 37. There's quite a few people below us in terms of median incomes.
And
Just saying.
Well, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
because they're the farm labor.
Yeah, it's
Counties.
a lot of those valley counties are very poor.
Yeah.
And, poorer.
Right.
I've got to take off. The only comment I'd make on schedule of the next meeting, 9 o'clock, for those of us in Sierra County, it's a little early, so.
Especially in January.
Especially in the winter.
Yeah.
That would be my only comment.
Shoot towards 10 or something.
Maybe shoot towards 10. So folks in Sierra, but.
Well, you can plead your case to the chair.
Yes. Good holidays.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
So this is a timeline of milestones for the overall plan update. I'm not going to read everything, but it just gives you an idea of what is going to be addressed at what time during for the management group, which will reflect on where the work group's efforts have to be. Plan one is, year one is project development, and year two is going to be focused on the chapter and plan development overall. So really the last thing is the next meetings. The next management group meeting is January 28th. It is here in this room at 9 o'clock. You guys are all welcome to come. Frank has to come now. And he'll be giving an update on the list of the management strategies that we selected today. And then also let them know the next work group meeting date, which we need to schedule.
Which is, we haven't scheduled it yet.
No, not yet. So I guess probably we should shoot for about 2 months, maybe just after the next management group sometime, maybe first half of February.
I take it's the long period of time between meetings is because you're giving us so much homework
I'll be giving you a lot of homework, yeah.
and you're asking us to send you a lot of stuff.
Right. And also during the management group meeting, they will be doing the project solicitation packages or approving them hopefully. So at the next meeting, it would be nice to be able to say, okay, here's the packages and talk a little bit more about those, about how to spread them around.
And since they're a Brown Act committee, we'll all be seeing the draft solicitation packages in advance of their decision.
That's correct.
So if we have any comments on it,
Mm-hmm. Right. So is there generally like a day of the week that works best for people? And we don't have to have the meetings here. We do have to have internet access. So we're open to moving the meeting around also.
Go ahead. No.
So do Thursdays work well for people?
Works great for me. Better than Fridays.
Yeah.
No Fridays or
Wednesdays.
Okay. So Thursday?
Thursday.
What's the second? I don't have my calendar.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Someone with a calendar. I calendar has the. What's the second Thursday?
February.
Or the
How about the third? Is there a third in February?
third Thursday?
Second Thursday in February is the 12th. It's the Thursday 19th.
Since our regular board meetings, Wednesday is the second Thursdays of the month.
Okay. So the
you're looking at February?
So the 19th is the third?
February 2015. Third February is the 19th.
19th?
I'm scheduled out of town, but I haven't finalized that yet. It doesn't matter. You need to meet, we should meet monthly.
So move it up, Robert.
February 19th.
February
Yeah,
19th. At 10 o'clock?
Yay.
And does this room work, or would you like to talk about moving somewhere else?
This
It's kind of a central location for the whole Fairway area, so.
Okay. 10 o'clock.
So let's say we're in the middle of a flood or a huge blizzard, which we hope we are. You're streaming this,
Yes.
but is there a way that we could set up a conference line?
It is a
If-
conference line?
Or it is a conference line.
Yep. So yes, people can participate that way as well.
Still hoping for a heavy winter,
Yes.
4 or 5 feet.
right? I don't wanna be Buffalo.
Oh, please. Not all at once.
Wow.
Not all at once.
Busting through doors and windows. Okay. So I guess the next steps are I'll be sending out some information for you guys to work through on the management strategies, and then we'll I'll be collecting information, so reports and studies and data. You guys can send that to me or send links if you have it like in a Dropbox or on your websites or something. And otherwise, I guess that's it. We're all done. Thank you so much for coming, you guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your help.
Thanks.
I'm trying to go on vacation starting the 17th.
Yeah,
So it's
no.
mom's fault.
So I might be calling it, that mean, if it works.